The 2% property tax cap is arguably the biggest policy achievement of this governor, right or wrong?
Among them.
Among them.
I think it would be the passing of the budget and then going directly into the property tax debate. Well, you didn't even have time to take a breath, and that takes courage.
Who proposed the 2% tax cap? Oh, that's the Democrats' plan that the governor agreed to.
That was
the 2.5% constitutional amendment. What happened to that?
Their response that was 2% that was different than the 2.5%.
Well, I've heard the Republicans criticize it and say that it's that there's too much leeway in there. There's too many loopholes and exceptions. It was a compromise that the Democrats came up with. The governor
so they deserve half the credit for it? Do they deserve half the credit for it?
Sure, of course. Okay. Or the blame for it. But what happened to the 32 bills in the toolkit? Did have any of those passed?
Some of them have, but the governor gets to...
I haven't seen
I don't think anybody would accuse the governor of not having been a very forceful advocate over the last 120 days or longer for the legislature to act.
I'm just measuring by the end result.
Right,
and I haven't seen him sign any of
let Jerry in.
Give the Republicans control of the legislature, Devin. I can guarantee you all those toolkit bills would be on his
desk.
Let Jerry in.
This conversation, the tone and tenure of this conversation is kind of reflective of the administration and the legislature's discussion. And the people, the everyday people, really want to know what's the vision. Tax cuts are not necessarily going to translate into jobs. We want to know how that's going to happen. How do you work through that conversation? The 2% cap for some communities present real challenge. All right, in terms of how do you manage and provide public services. The reduction in aid to municipalities in need of that results in public safety services being cut. And those communities, I mean, so it sounds like it's a great budgetary action, all right, but on the ground where people's quality of life has to be treated right now, right, not futuristically. I think the trend that you talk about in terms of the millionaires and in-migration and out-migration is not really being affected by the actions taken by this government, but we have not had the conversation, and what I'm saying, the divisive piece, we haven't had the conversation about what do we want New Jersey to look like, all right? How do we define that and come together with a course of action?
What do you want New Jersey to look like? I
want New Jersey to be a place where business startups, new job generation is occurring in regions. So take a Camden region, Camden County, that those jobs benefit Camden residents, okay, but the entire region, so that the tax structure and the service quality
is there. Christie thwarting that vision in any way?
I don't think he's paying attention. I don't think he's articulating, and the concern that I'm hearing from a population, what is that vision? If we're going through this period of pain, all right, because it's a very difficult situation, where are we going? When I'm investing, when I'm taking this reduction in service, making the adjustment in behavior, resetting what priorities are, where's this going to get us?
Let's get a Republican response.
May I touch on that a bit? And when it comes to the tax cuts, I'd like to elaborate, is the one thing that this country, not only New Jersey, but this country is craving is certainty. And you'll hear that word a lot. It's certainty. It's certainty as to whether we'll have tax extensions come January. It's certainty as to whether our property tax bill will go up and by how much. And I think that's the one thing that this country and this state is craving, and something we need so businesses can thrive, so individuals can raise their family and can predict as to what their years ahead are going to be like.
Is Christie supplying more certainty than we could otherwise expect?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Clarity for certain.
Clarity.
I mean, Jerry, I think that you do have an agreed upon vision coming out of Trenton right now. How we got there is somewhat debatable, but Republicans and Democrats in the form of the governor and the legislature are talking about the same things. They're talking about job creation, and they're putting tax cuts for businesses on the table. So I think there's agreement there. You're talking about dealing with property taxes, not just by sending people a check right before an election, but by dealing with the structural components that are driving property taxes higher. So I think you're seeing some agreement on a vision, which is a more affordable New Jersey, where people can feel good again about their ability to stay here, to create a business here, to keep a job here, to raise a family here, and to see their grandkids around. I think that's everybody's vision, unless I talk to them in the State House.
Has Christie been fair to public employees?
You know, my dad used to say whether the glass is half full or half empty depends on whether you're doing the drinking or pouring. I would say that for the majority of New Jerseyans, asking them to share in the pain and asking them to come into the reality.
Asking public employees to share.
Public employees to come into the real world of today. When somebody comes home from their private sector job, learning that their benefits have been reduced, that their 401k is down, that their colleagues are being laid off, that they're not getting a raise or a bonus this year, to expect the same out of the people who they then pay with their tax dollars, I think they think that's reasonable.
And I think you have to also listen to the individuals, not the unions, because I have several friends who are teachers and other sorts of unionized workers, and they say, Amanda, I would have taken a pay freeze as opposed to losing 3 of my friends at my school who are teachers. I would have done that, but we didn't get the say. It comes down to sometimes personalities and not individuals, and that's unacceptable.
Let me get a Democratic view or a liberal view on Christie and public employees. Has it been a fair critique?
Let me give you a fair critique of what Christie's the governor is asking of public employees. He's asking them to make up the entire balance in the pension system, all of the underfunding of the pension system. He's asking them to contribute more from their paychecks, to take less in benefits, to retire later. On the same year that he refused to contribute the state's share to that pension system. That, to me, does not seem fair.
Well, he's asking them for more, but it's not clear that he's asking them to solve the entire problem.
Well, I haven't seen him put any money into the pension system,
and
or even
say
say
that how many governors in the past 10 years have funded the entirety of the pension contribution? None of them.
And
so this is a problem. This hole grows bigger and bigger every year, and the governor said, folks, we have a giant hole, and we got to deal with the fact that we have a hole, not just see if we can't find enough dirt to fill it in.
You can't put the burden entirely on public employees.
And I don't think the governor suggested
He's demonized them and said that they're greedy. These problems are because the unions are too demanding.
No. This governor's been very fair in saying that it has been a problem of both structure, that yes, the legislature has acted to increase benefits beyond what we were able to pay for, but we need to deal with that. And it's also been a problem of governors who haven't put the money in. And right now, we don't have the money to put in, nor should we put it into a system that's broken.
The discussion about fairness to public employees, I think, goes beyond the question of the contribution in terms of pension payments, not payments, benefits. It comes, I think, part of the discussion, and it's unfortunate, and this is part of my concern, the concern I hear from a number of people, the work conditions that the remaining public employees in those reduced fire and police departments are in, the work requirements and the stress and the environment in which they have to perform for the employees who are leaving, the brain drain, the talent drain, and the like, is not really being accounted for in this discussion. So it goes beyond, I think, the question of are we asking for money.
Are you talking about morale? Are you talking about morale in government?
Morale, performance, efficiency, and expectation.
Do you think morale in government is suffering under this governor?
I would imagine that anybody who's working in a workplace that's feeling economic distress, and that's virtually every workplace in America, is feeling a little bit down in the mouth right now. You know, I think the problem with, Jerry, you raise a good point, is that the unions have not yet come to the table and acknowledged the problem that has generated some of the things that you're talking about, some of the byproducts in terms of additional work or things like that. I mean, let's remember though that for the state workforce, the reductions really aren't coming until this January 1st, because we have been saddled with a previous administration's decision that we couldn't lay off or fire anybody until next year. So next year, when we start to see those reductions, hopefully the union will come to the table and work with the governor. The management will come together with the labor and decide, how is this fair? What can we do to make this better? But that can't happen until the unions are ready to come to the table and acknowledge the fundamental problem we have.
I think both Democrats and Republicans for at least a couple of administrations have been looking at the size of the workforce, looking to reduce the size of the force, while the government, the legislature, and the governors have asked those public employees to produce more. All right, and I think the cumulative impact, just like the cumulative impact of raising pension benefits and the like on that side, has had a negative impact. And not only am I talking about state government, but employees, but I'm talking about all the way down to the municipal level. And part of the quality of life and why people who can stay in New Jersey, some of those people who are leaving, all right, are leaving because the quality of life services, right, that they reasonably expected to be provided by a set of employees are no longer be there, and that's a problem.
Let me ask a final question. Is Chris Christie's aggressive style going to wear well or wear thin over time? I'll start there.
I think you're already starting to see it wear thin with a lot of folks. I think that was one of the points that the Star-Ledger made in its editorial when it gave him a C or whatever grade it gave him, is that this was fine to get things kick-started, but over the course of 4 years, I think people get pretty tired of being yelled at.
Amanda.
I think it comes down to promises made, promises kept. If you look, the governor was elected a very wide margin, and not just in Republican towns. You look at Woodbridge Township, for example. He won Woodbridge Township, and that's...
But he was elected by a 4% margin. That's not very wide.
Well, if you look
not
at
with the majority.
If you look at Woodbridge Township, there's a reason he was elected, and that's because they want change. It's not just Republicans who want change. It's everyone who not just wants it, but needs it. And I think we're going to see change.
On that note, Amanda Woloshen, Tom Wilson, Jerry Harris, Deborah Howlett, thank you all very much. On next week's edition of On the Record, a panel discussion on state politics to be taped at the New Jersey Business and Industry Association annual conference with lobbyists Harold Hodis and Dale Florio, Democratic State Chairman John Wisniewski, and Senate Minority Leader Tom Kean. That's next Sunday morning at 9 and 11 and Monday morning at 6:30. For more on New Jersey politics and government, you can catch Reporters Roundtable Sunday mornings, and thanks for watching.